into the flow. Hey everybody, Gustavo Fermin here. Thank you for watching Into the Flow. This next episode is going to be a cool one because I'm going to interview my friend and co-host, King Al, all the way from Ecuador. So we're going to do it over Zoom. He's actually making money work for him. He makes passive income. That's what we all want to do, right? We don't want to be working too hard. 9 to 5 is over. He knows how to do that. So he's going to explain to us. He's going to talk to us about that. So I'm excited because it's going to be a very cool educational show today. And I want you to meet King Al next.
Really appreciate that introduction. It's an honor to be here. It's honor what you are creating, and I can't wait to get more into how you've developed your life to where it is now and what you've gone through and what you've done to deal with the successes and potential what people might consider failures and what you've done to rebound from that. But that's not about now. We're going to get into me and then we're going to get into what you have to share, which is one of the key things to wealth is health. And I
Wow.
know we've had a lot of conversations about that. But right now we're going to talk about financial wealth. And I also think that also can help for physical wealth and health. And if you do it in, I believe in what I call the right way. I know some
Well,
people
yeah. You know,
have sacrificed to get their health, but they sacrifice their wealth to get it. And
yeah,
hopefully,
that's so interesting because again, you cannot have wealth without health.
I agree.
And and I think taking care of your mind and your body, first of all, having that love for your mind and body first
Mhm.
before wealth. I mean, wealth and money, money in general, money is energy.
Right.
And, when you don't believe that money is energy, that money is hard to make, then you need to work 20, 30, 40, 60 hours, hard work, hard labor to make money and not have enough. I hear a lot of people always say, even guys that have a good job, and they're working lots of hours during the week, they're tired and they're like, oh man, I don't have enough money. And I'm like, why don't you have enough money if you're working like 60 hours a week or you are a
Mhm.
manager of you're still complaining about not having enough money, and like you said, you can't, these people are tired. They are always complaining that there's not enough money. They complain that, oh, this is so expensive that I don't go out because that's so expensive. And I'm thinking, when is the time where people are gonna say, hey, mine is energy and I'm energy. If money is energy and we all are energy, we are all together. It's all
Mhm.
one thing here. How are you
Mhm.
gonna make that? How do you gonna flow into that? And how do
Mhm.
you make that flow into your life? How do you, first of all, I want to know how you get inspired to
Mhm.
believe that way, to believe that money works for you. There's an inspiration there.
Yeah.
How do you get the goosebumps going like, oh man, this is gonna work. This is good. I want to do this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you get the energy of money to flow into your experience because you're doing that very well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
You. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I like that. Well, let me break that down. How do you get excited about money? How do you get it to flow into your life? Um, you know, one of the things I'm going to see if this will make sense, and I think you'd be able to relate to this when you got into dancing, because you're a phenomenal dancer, phenomenal teacher of dancing. What was you had an inspiration you wanted to, yeah, exactly. You wanted to learn how to dance, but what would you say was your inspiration thing that you followed to get your level of dancing when it started as an interest into really getting into a style of and form of dance? Who was your inspiration for that, would you say?
well, I mean, of course, the my when I was a kid,
Mhm.
um, one of my friends that I adore, you know her, Sue J. I'm gonna bring her name up, Sue Johnston. Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, she.
And
she's
let you
gonna laugh
change,
about
yeah,
this.
let you
She's
change your
gonna laugh
sex.
about she's gonna laugh about many things, but she's gonna laugh about what I'm gonna say right now. Um, when I was a kid in El Salvador, she's gonna laugh about that. When I was a kid back in my country, I was watching the Jackson Five all the time and Motown, and all that, and I got inspired by him dancing, and so I again I would get really inspired, like I would get like this burst of energy that I would just get up and play a music, play one of his songs and dance in my room, and I'd be like, okay, I practiced enough, I'm really good, and I would dance in front of the mirror, and then I get this excitement, like goosebumps, back to that again, because I'm talking a lot about that raw feeling. And then
Mm.
after that, I started practicing, and then I got I
I,
got I would dance in front of my sisters and then my parents, and so I got inspired by that. There's one little tiny thing that makes you kind of go, mm. And what about you when it comes to
yeah, so
money and all
what,
that?
what the reason why I brought that up is you learning how to dance, because we didn't come out of the womb dancing, right? You were inspired by watching somebody. And when you said you're practicing the moves, I assert that you were probably practicing the Jackson 5 or Michael Jackson's moves to perfecting what that looked like, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing that I understood relatively early, just I would say in life, is like I was always interested about money, and not because I love money, but because I started to understand the parents, listening to society, that money always seemed to come up. And it seemed, as the theory goes, money runs the world. So I know that we inherited this thing called money. We were born into it. And I didn't create the game. You didn't create the game. We were born into this game called money. And I realized it played such a pivotal part of our society that it seemed to weave and bob and go into all assets of our lives. When I was younger, my mom working many jobs to just put food on the table and talking about it, I realized that there's this energy called money that these adults seem to be pursuing. So it was always a quick understanding, like if I want to do the things that I want to do in life, I got to understand what this thing called money is. And one of the key things is finding somebody that has mastered the game. In your case, and why I brought up the example of following somebody that inspired you, was somebody who had amazing moves, and then you started following and duplicating what this person that had moves was doing, making probably you look cooler, you catching the flow, as your title of your show is. And so that's what my main goal was, to find somebody who has mastered the art like a Michael Jackson, that was flowing with the energy of money. And just like how if you will, a hunter is tracking down an antelope or a deer, is following its tracks to find out where does it go eat, where is it hiding. So I looked at who created tracks of success when it came to money. And there was a journey trying to find the right people, because there are many people involved in different avenues of how money can come in, from trading to selling cars to hustling and selling in I was going to say like an audio shop, because I did that as well. And so I wanted to find somebody who had mastered the art of doing something which I had studied a while ago, or studied in research. Have you heard of the Rothschilds, the Rothschild
Not
family?
really. Not
Okay,
really, no.
some people are aware or not. There's started, I believe it was in the 1800s, actually a little bit sooner than that, 18 now, that had accumulated the money worth, and it was a family that had understood how it worked and created this system of how to make money work for itself. That's the very short end of it. But what happened is that this family became multi trillionaires. I think the family's worth now about 500 trillion. Uh, that's that's more than Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, all these people combined. And how these people did it is that they had the I was gonna say the audacity money work for itself. And one of the things that they started with uh, is the mortgage industry, lending out their money. I call it renting out your money. So I found somebody who had mastered the art of renting out your money. And I use that term renting out your money because some people, a lot of people, including myself, usually start in the game of real estate by buying real estate and renting out that real estate. Somebody comes to live in that property and they may treat it well. Mostly, I find there's damage throughout the years that happen when you rent out your property. And I went down that avenue because there are thousands of books of how to buy real estate, how to rent it out, how to fix it up and flip it, how to be a good landlord, those kind of things. But I discovered somebody that said, "Hey, I'm going to show you the next level, which is instead of renting out your property, and it could be damaged, it could have people who call you at 2 o'clock in the morning to change a light bulb or fix a toilet, which has happened to me. That's not, he says, I'm going to show you how to rent out your money. And that way you don't have to worry about changing those things at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I go, really? How do you do that? So I found this gentleman that taught me how to do that. And that gave me goosebumps when he showed me throughout he's like had 20, he's over 20 years now, 20 years of mastering this art of renting out your money. And when he showed me what he was making per month, I was like, that gave me goosebumps. I was like, oh, he goes, listen, it's not sexy, but it's effective. So that's
Wow. So that would be passive income for sure, because you're not really breaking your back for, like you're not going over there to fix the toilet at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're not dealing with all the damage.
flooding, flooding, and then the tenant goes like, "Hey, we've had a flood here. Not only come and fix the flood that's happened in the basement, but it's also affected my stuff. And now I need you to cover you repairing and buying me new stuff that the water is damaged, and then getting into a conversation about that. Yeah, like it's work, and and talk about back. I've done things like construction. I've done things like just hard labor out in the fields to grow things and stuff like that. So yeah, there is some real backbreaking work. There's nothing wrong with it, but especially if you love doing that. But there's some people that do work that they don't love and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know.
Exactly. That's what, a lot of people would like to find out. Just before we keep going here, I noticed there is some problems with technical problems with the sound. I just want to apologize to the listeners and the viewers. There's a little problem with the sound. Sometimes it's because my friend here is in Ecuador when doing this over Zoom, and so sometimes it might be a little bit. But I think you understand the message here. So let's keep going. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt and say that, but I wanted to say one more thing. Yes, you're talking about the idea of working hard, because this, we keep talking about working hard versus letting money work for you. And I think, like you said, very interesting, because you said, yeah, if you like what you're doing, there's nothing wrong with, like, yes, getting up and doing the work, and the sweating and the whatever you're doing, enjoying what you're doing. And that's the trick. A lot of people don't enjoy what they do, like
Yeah.
I
And they
love
want
what
to
I
get out.
do. Yeah,
Right.
they want to get out. They don't know how. They're stuck. They want to pay the bills. They're stuck paying the mortgage, whatever. They feel like they can't. How are they gonna start their own business? How that's unrealistic. How are they gonna? So when you said that, yeah, you don't mind doing some of the work, but where I want to talk to you more about is like the magic moment where you say, "Hey, money is just flowing into me." You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ask,
Go
ask.
ahead.
yeah, money is flowing. So just to be clear, are you asking me specifically how I did that, or
Yeah,
what is that?
once you found out the way to do it, like
Yeah.
when you understood how renting money works instead of renting property, like what happened there? Like how did you switched your mind and your understanding of it?
How did I switch on? It switched by going back to that example of having a mentor. Is by For me, it was like following my mentor's mindset. What do you what are you thinking about? What does this mean to you when you have this money? And I'd ask things like just like what is your plan for the money that's coming in? What made you or had you discover this, and what turned you on to this? Why did you go down this path? And the reason why I was asking those questions is to model the mindset. Oh, that's how you respect money. There's a lot of people, for example, that once they get money, and you said this earlier, they may be working 60 hours, maybe even a good job, where they get the money into their hands and it's like water in their hands. It just leaks out. They go and buy a new fridge, new car. I had a friend years ago who had an excellent job in the oil industry, and he went out and bought a new fancy muscle car. And he went by all his friends showing how successful he was. The top down was off, and his hair was blowing, and the new fresh paint on it. And came by and I was happy for him. I was like, hey, good for you. But deep down inside, I didn't have the heart to say this part. I was like, so you could have put that money to use in such a way where it pays for a new car or buys you a new car instead of working hard 60 hours a week and then going out and just in my eyes, just throwing that cash to something that you think is going to bring you happiness. It's interesting as years later, now he is barely making ends meet. He's living at his parents' basement, in his parents' basement. And in my eyes, he doesn't look as happy as when he showed up with that new car. And that's what I was concerned about, is that if in my eyes, if he had followed, and you mentioned it earlier, the insights and the teachings of Robert Kiyosaki, he is also one of my mentors because he really, going back to what you just said, how did I switch my thinking? When I read his book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, it wasn't just a book to me, it was a manual of how to treat, utilize, and get the effectiveness of money working for you. And when I saw my good friend with his new car, I saw that he didn't see the opportunity like that book from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was trying to teach people. Because it was interesting. In Robert Kiyosaki's book, one of his books, I think it's Quadrant, Cash Flow Quadrant, his second book, where he talks about how his wife came to him and wanted to buy a new car because they were doing really well in real estate, buying and flipping it at that time. I think it was in the 80s. And she wanted to buy a new car with their successes that they were making with the real estate. And he said, "Well, I tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we use that money to buy a cash producing investment, and that investment will pay for the new car." So they went out, she thought that's a great idea. What they went out, went out and bought a storage facility. And with that storage facility, which for them was low maintenance at the time, they were bringing in a nice cash flow from that storage center that they had, um, and they used that to purchase a new vehicle, the car of her dreams, and that cash flowing vehicle, which is their storage unit, was producing golden eggs, and they used those golden eggs to pay for their dream. And that's what that when you talk about mindset, that just hooked me. I'm just like, that gave me goosebumps because I'm like, well, if they can do it, how do I do it? And that's
Right.
what led me to looking for a mentor that could teach me how to rent out my money. How do you go get these little dollars that you go out and do a 9 to 5 with, And instead of going and buying a new ring or a new car, what if I had that money work for myself? So it's duplicating. And then
Right.
I take the little baby children money and I go and create the lifestyle that I want instead of working hard, spending it, and then have to go back to my job to make the same amount that I had before. There was a
Right.
you met my girlfriend years ago. She was a registered nurse. I'll go by her first name, Julia. We came and visited you.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I remember telling her she used to do this a lot, where she was a registered nurse, making good money, and she loves to travel, loves to travel. And what she would do is that she'd work the whole year making great money and then spend several months traveling, and spending that money. And then she'd have to come back and work all over again. But me and her, we actually did a deal. I said, instead of doing that, why don't you just take your hard-earned money, put it into an asset that produces income for you, and then when it acquires enough money, go and travel with that money. And in the way that I showed her is like your principal that you started with will always be there. So if you really need it, you can always come back to that principal and go like, hey, I need that principal. And thank you for producing little baby monies for me that I could go and enjoy my life with. Now you can utilize that. Or what you could do is if you don't need it as an emergency case, maintain that money that you have there. In this case, she had like 30 grand and she would have it produce money for her at 16% per annum. So we got into an investment that was making us 16% per year and making us little baby children. And then she would go and live off of the money that was produced by the $30,000, making 16% per annum. And we did several different deals like that where she had the idea like, oh, this is better. And then you could still work if you wanted to, and you could keep doing that. Get into other deals if you wanted to that produced that kind of amount for you per month, and it was paid to her monthly. So you earn interest a year, but it pays you monthly. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's
And so
that's just
that
so
alone gives me
awesome.
goosebumps. Yeah.
That's so great because then I can totally see. I mean, it's like that's this whole thing behind money working for you right there. You know,
Yeah.
your money,
Yeah.
you have this money you save for something that you invest in something else, and that same money will produce more money.
Yeah.
Then you can use the other money for. So basically, you're not really working. Again, you're not working hard to make that money all the time. It just
Mm-mm.
grows
So you,
out
you
of
work hard maybe that one time if you wanted to.
the one time to put it in there and to and then the money is actually, I can totally see it in my mind. The money just kind of like hammering it and just shoveling it, just working
Yeah.
hard, man, sweating,
Yeah.
and you just sitting there like
Yeah. Good job, money. Yeah. And so when I've been doing this for over 8 years, and what I've done is I lived very meagerly for a while. I still do to a certain degree, but I did that because what I did is like I compounded that and I got into bigger, better deals that made me even more money. So I got addicted to the idea of just not working as hard as I used to be and just spending it crazily. I started working with ideas like, how do I get to live in my house for free? How do I do that? Uh, how do I get to travel for free? How do I do that? And in fact, I usually have a challenge for people. I literally, and I'm not like a central bank that can just print money, but I found a way how to print money by using different methods. Like I found different strategies because you start to see different. In fact, I'm going to be talking with a gentleman this Thursday about one of my strategies that I literally created 5 grand out of thin air without using any of my own money. And I'm going to show him how I did that. And I was able to do that within a year very easily. When I say
wow.
very easily, I'm not saying quick, but there's certain things that we were able to do legally, and because I was doing this strategy, I saw different opportunities that I didn't notice before, and I was just like, well, how do I do this? And so I started testing it out, these theories, and I mean, nothing lasts forever, but my main goal was to create the I to see opportunity when it arises and to have the ability to strike and take advantage of making it happen. And so I'm going to show him this technique that I did a couple of years ago that literally I made over $5,000 throughout the year by just I didn't have to work. It's by having conversations with people. And it has to do
Wow.
with the bank. I was talking to them about what I do. Like I used to work in a bank, and one of the things that I saw for many years was people put money into the bank. Of course, that's what we're taught to do, and then they pay fees. Generally, a lot of people pay fees to keep their money in a bank. And one of the great things that I noticed right off the bat, it was small but simple, was just like when you work at a bank, the bank that you work for doesn't charge you monthly fees to have an account so in this case, I used to work at the Bank of Nova Scotia. When I work at the Bank of Nova Scotia, I had an account at the Bank of Nova Scotia, and I didn't get charged any fees on that. And when I left the bank after 6 years, I promised myself after years of watching people paying exorbitant amounts, what I considered exorbitant amounts, sometimes hundreds of dollars a month in fees to keep their money in the bank. I promised myself one thing: I'm never going to go with a bank that's going to charge me to keep my money in their institution. That's
Mm.
crazy. And so,
Wow.
I found online banks at the time that you could keep your money there, but not get charged. And then they had certain promotions. And if you did promotions, it still goes on to this day. And so I'm like, why don't people take advantage of this? And so I understood the
Can you
system.
say, can you repeat that again about the bank? You got cut off there for a little bit about the online banking thing you were talking about.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. Sorry about the internet here. You know, it's funny because I'm talking and it doesn't cut off or anything. So it's neat how it's being received at the other end. So
Yeah.
let me know when you listen to it if it comes through clear once you review this. But what I was saying with the online banks, they had certain promotions that they would reward you with free cash. And so
Promotions. Yeah.
so I took advantage of those promotions, and they paid me for aligning with the promotions that they had. And what I said was like, I'm surprised people don't take advantage of this. Or when I say advantage, like not take advantage of people, but take advantage of the opportunity. And when I did that, it made me over 5 grand to do that. And what did I do with that money? I reinvested it. And now that money's
Wow.
making me more money. So I got free money, and I took that free money to make me more money.
That's just amazing. And you know what I'm noticing too? So many things I'm actually noticing, and I'm quite impressed about. One thing for sure is you're going back to the energy, going back to who you are, going back to how do you get inspired and how do you follow your flow? Because I'm always sticking
Right.
uh, to that energy, and your energy as a person has to do a lot with how calculating and calm you are with money. Like for example, somebody that wants to get things all the time, somebody that wants to get a big house and the cars and the jewelry and going to the clubs and then look good for people.
Yeah.
People like that, they're in a rush. They want to they get that quick money. They want to show it to people, right? And what
Right.
I've noticed too is that you're very humble and you're very, I would say calculating in a way, very smart in how, I'm going to wait a little longer. I'm going to do it this way. I'm not in a rush to get Armani suit or whatever. Armani, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
even,
Marnie. Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know if that's even relevant right now, but you're not in a rush to buy all this stuff, and
No, no.
you're okay by. I remember you back in the day. You were telling me you were rent the upstairs of your house to the renters, and you go to the basement and live down there.
I
And
did.
a lot of people, they were like, "Forget it. I'm not gonna live in that dark basement. I want to live up on the top. You know what I mean?" And
That's right.
so that's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing that your has to do a lot with personality as well. And also another thing that I'm noticing too is about the banking you were talking about. You say, oh, how come people don't do it more often? They take their money out of an institution and put it in a place where they actually are paying them to have money in there. It's because people don't believe in the unknown. They don't believe
Mhm.
in the unconditional. We are human beings who are so conditioned. You gotta you go to school, you work 9 to 5, you break your back, you put the money into the bank, and then you pay the fees, and then you know what I mean. They don't never nobody was ever taught to put no take the money out of there, put it in this one because right here you make more money, or they'll pay you to have money in there. Not too many people think that way, unless the parents of the kids, the parents of the person have started doing that and they teach the kids to do that. Like
That's
like
right.
like Robert Kiyosaki,
Right.
he teaching his kids doing that. So, anyways, those two observations I wanted to talk about because I see it in you that right. What I'm seeing is you're so humble.
That's so cool. Yeah, well, that comes from not being humble for many years and realizing that's not the way to go. That's not the best way to go, right? So yeah, sometimes that I didn't start off that way. That sometimes came from some hard lessons, you know.
Good.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
learned, man, like all of
yeah. Oh
us.
yeah, yeah. Like, how do I not do that again? How do I not pee on the electrical fence and then shock all the hair out of my head? I want to keep the remainder of what I got, man. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
So basically now we're to the point where you are living in Ecuador. You have a beautiful family, wife, and it's the one son. I'm sorry, one, two.
Yeah, number two is on its way. It's gonna be
Wow. And wow,
so
congratulations. And then do you have this life where now you're thinking of moving to another Latin country, El Salvador, maybe.
yeah, your country. You talk so much
M-
about it. I just like
My country,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
So
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there's people that say, I can't leave unless you really love the city you're in or whatever. But it's a lot of people that are not really happy
mm,
living where they are. For example, really cold
yeah,
places, really rainy places, like let's say Vancouver.
yeah.
I
Bring
have
back some
friends.
memories.
Yeah, I have friends that complain about the weather and it rains so much and it's so expensive and you can't really do this and you can't really do that. I want to move somewhere like Thailand. I want to move somewhere but they never do it because they can't. They they,
Right.
they they keep talking about it and they never do it. And then here
And
you
they
are
think,
moving from country to country and with your family and having your home here and homes there. So tell us about that.
which part? The not being locked into not being locked into the mindset of like I can't do it
Yeah,
because
that's one of the things. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Because I would like to start there because I think with our upbringing in North America, there's this teaching, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. I think both modalities are at work where you are expected and you're sometimes even told to just go along with the flow that society has set out for you. And the other thing is that when you get a 9 to 5 and you're, I wouldn't even just say complacent, but you feel locked into because you got bills to pay, you got maybe even a family to take care of, you got debt to service, your car, your house, uh, all those things. I think sometimes what happens in the mindset is that I got to stick with this job to take care of all the things that I have. And you even covered it a little bit when you talked about being locked into the known versus the unknown. Well, I don't know what
Yeah.
it's like in Thailand. I don't know what the culture is like. I don't know maybe what the costs are, the hidden things around the corners that I might not be expecting. So the fear of the unknown, I also think helps us keep us planted in our lives. And for me, I think I would have fallen into that if it wasn't for my wife and COVID. Those two combinations really got me going because it loosened up the idea that I don't have to be in one place. And at the time when COVID happened, I wasn't really happy. I wasn't totally happy when our country decided to, in my perception, force people to take something that not everybody wanted to take. You can't go here, you can't go there, you can't fly unless you get this medicine that we want to give you. And so I wasn't a fan of that. And I wasn't a fan that at the time our prime minister was saying we're going to lock the borders. And I got to tell you, I hate to admit it, I was whining about it. And my wife said, "Well, you've been working hard to get to this level where you can pick up and go. Why don't we go and test that theory? You're making passive income. You've worked for it, and you keep talking about checking out other places around the world. Here's our opportunity." So, and I ran with it. And I think sometimes adding on to what I was saying about all the other types of pressures that people have when you have a 9 to 5, when you are associated, going back to what I said in the beginning, with a mentor or people around you that think like-minded, hence why I like hanging out with you. When they think like-minded, they raise your level, they raise your consciousness, they raise your flow to go to a higher level and coming up with solutions to what you might perceive as problems. Again, like I perceived what was going on at the time as a problem, and I was surrounded with at least the love of my life that was just like, hey, let's look at it in a different way. Here's
Wow,
let's take the baton and run with it. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so
that's
we
so interesting.
we started to do that, and it's so far worked out very well. It's
You
very well.
know,
It became the
and you
dream.
said it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it made the dream that I had in my head feel it out in reality. So that was beautiful. So
And I just kind of wanted to say that, like you said, like-minded people, and in the same wave, the same frequency, we um, we need to surround ourselves to the frequency of the power that we are already, and frequency meaning people of the same type of beliefs and way of thinking that will bring you up to a different level. And you did that with a mentor, and so this person guided you with his energy for you to get to this point. It's just so good. I just love that. I love those kind of be behind or underneath everything that we do, any profession, anything that we do, there's that power of within us, and that
that's
the energy that I keep talking about that keeps coming out, and just said it right there. You have the energy. You were looking at the problem instead of the solution. You were looking at the
right.
problem of COVID and complaining about everything that was
That
going
was
on, and
yeah,
instead of looking at the opportunities and the flow, that was gonna move you to the next level. And I think your wife, your girlfriend at the time, she was so smart to. She was on a
yeah,
different frequency than you were.
yeah.
She was looking at the solution, and she just brought it up really easily.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And then you
Hit
just
right
took it.
between the eyes. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, you just took it and ran with it. And I think with your knowledge and what you already established this base of this freedom that you wanted to find. They just ran with it and it worked. It just basically it was already meant to work.
I
You know what I
think
mean?
so. Yeah, yeah.
It was already meant to work. There's no way it cannot not work.
Yeah, because you're focusing on it, you're speaking into it, you're speaking it into life, like growing a baby, a thought baby that grows into a little child, an infant to a teenager to an adult. And so we're in the adult mode when it comes to the dreams that we were fostering and speaking about and nurturing. And
And
so,
so good, because I remember one time when you first told me, when you were with your ex-girlfriend, the nurse,
yeah,
and then you were telling me that you wanted to move and travel South America, and you were taking. I was actually helping with the Spanish,
that's
helping
right.
you. I was teaching you some Spanish, and then you were getting ready, and I'm thinking, wow, that was when somebody speaks of something that is not happening. A lot of people might go, "Oh, this guy, I don't know, how is he gonna do this?" There's no
Yeah,
there, people want to see. tangible things like, wait a minute, how are you going to do it? You
Yeah.
just didn't know maybe at the time how. You just knew that you were going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you didn't speak Spanish. And I'm thinking, how is he going to go over there? And because not too many people speak English, you know?
Yeah.
And
Right.
and so and sorry, I got cut off with the sound. And not too many people will speak perfect English over there, so you have to speak Spanish. So I'm thinking, how's he gonna do it? So here we are. You've been in Ecuador already for how long?
3 years.
3 years, and you have a house,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
land.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, man, it's just unbelievable. I don't want to say unbelievable because it's not in my vocabulary. That's another thing that I'm learning to get
Right.
rid of words that don't serve me. So
Right.
it's not
Okay.
unbelievable. It's believable.
Yeah. It's
It's
believable.
so believable, baby. Believable.
Yeah, man. Well said, man. With a double B, man, triple B, man, believable, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a saying, and again, going by others that think at a higher frequency. When I say higher frequency, there's a saying that steel sharpens steel, and I heard the statement from another mentor of mine years ago that said, "When one commits, providence moves too."
Wow.
So. Yeah, so your life will work out. You don't have to know how exactly how it's going to work out. Speak into it, make movements towards that direction, and then you'll start to see the universe or whatever you call God will align things for you and bring them into your life. There's a saying that also goes, I had it here, like, one is like respect the grind. Um, Developing your relentlessness is going to help you achieve moving obstacles out of your way. At the time, they may seem like mountains, but you will learn how to deal with them, go around them, go through them if you
Mm.
got to go through it, climb it, mount that mountain. So
Wow. Yeah.
those kind of things help
A-
me keep going to be like, I don't know exactly how this is going to work out, but I'm going to keep moving in this direction, speaking it into existence, like what you were talking about. Speaking, I don't want anybody just the word positive, but just those seeds that will grow trees for you, grow results for you, and look like huge trees that started off this tiny, even tinier than that, like a mustard seed. As some people who are watching the good book called the Bible, a mustard seed can grow into a huge tree. And you're like, how does
Yeah.
that do? Those are the things of thoughts and the things like what you're doing with your podcast and speaking the flow into your life. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and also the belief uh, of yourself, believe
Hmm.
and believe, because I believe it's just a thought that you keep thinking, you
That's
know
right.
and it's basically you can be thinking the same thing all the time, believe that that's the truth. And I think believing and that money really works for you, not just it's not just something that people do out there, like the 1%. Everybody always talks about the 1%.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we're not part of the 1%. We're all part of this, this lack of this scarcity of like the
right.
problems. And but how come you cannot be part of the 1%? Oh, we're not just lucky, we're not that way. And I think they believe of that you can be part of a bigger, something better. And first I want to ask you something just before we wrap up soon here, because I mean there's so much to talk about. And I wanted to introduce you in this episode, so then we can keep talking about this kind of stuff on other episodes with different people and different guests. And also I wanted to just say, what kind of advice do you have to somebody that wants to start doing this kind of thing, that making money work for them? They have a 9 to 5, or they're not even have a 9 to 5, but they're trying to find something to do in their lives right now, starting a business or getting a job or something that they're passionate about. They want to leave their job, or what's the good advice you have, if one thing you're gonna say for everybody right now that want to start? Because I know that later on, I think I want to make sure that before we leave here, you tell people how to reach you, with the website, with the email, with anything you're teaching online? Because I know people are gonna want to learn. Okay, so what's the advice?
Yeah, so it's things that they've probably already heard, but I want to see if maybe what I'm saying says it in such a different way that resonates for them to take action. And that's the key thing, take action. One of the ways of taking action is follow those that went before you. I mentioned it already, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you haven't read it, read it. And don't just read it as a book to like, oh, it's entertaining, it sounds good. Read it as a textbook, meaning that you're ready to take action on the things that he mentions in that book. If you're not doing it in your life, it's not real. So when I read that book, I looked everything he mentioned in that book, from when he was young to lessons he's learned. I looked at my life and said, okay, where am I doing that? Okay, that's great if I'm doing what he's saying. If I'm not doing that, how do I create that? So one of the things is like when I like you mentioned it earlier, when I rented up the upstairs and lived downstairs, I did that because I wanted to put the holes that I was having in my pocket, so money was leaving my hands. The first thing I did was find ways to plug up those holes so I could have a container that held money. And I got that from reading the book. Like, how can I do that? What is that? And that question starts to open your mind to start looking. You ever have like a certain car that you buy, and all of a sudden you start noticing that car everywhere. You didn't notice it before, but when you buy that car, you're interested in that car, you start to notice it everywhere. Me and my wife are interested in a Tesla, and we would start to notice them in the city at the time we were living, where they were and what color they were. We didn't notice that before. And I read this book, and what it does is that your mind starts to open, takes the blinds off to start looking. Where can I see that? Your mind is like a radio, and it starts to put out to the universe or to your God, hey, where is this? If somebody's doing it, how are you doing it? And when you start to do it in your life, it becomes ingrained in your cellular structure. Nobody can come to you and tell you like, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't do it? I'm doing it. Like I'll give you an example. When I started buying my property, I read a book that talked about how to buy property zero down. And I was reading a book in the US that was saying how to do that. When I tried to do that in Canada, experts like realtors and lawyers were saying, you can't do that here. But I found somebody. I found somebody. She was an ethnic person from Europe. And she goes, oh, I know how you can do that. I will show you. She was a realtor. And she goes, I'll show you how to do it. And I bought two houses like that with zero, none of
Wow.
using none of my own money, using none of my own money. And so when I got to talk to a realtor after that, because I ended up in the first 2 years buying seven properties. This is years ago. I owned seven properties. And when I talked to realtors and when they would tell me, you can't do that here, I was like, what are you talking about? I've done it twice already. So you're not the person for me. Before that, before I had done it, when a realtor who I thought was an expert would say, you can't do that here, I'd be like, okay, maybe they're right. So I took the reading of the book and I made it happen in my life. And when it happened in my life, nobody could tell me I couldn't do it because I did it. When I just told you earlier that I created $5,000 out of thin air using none of my own money, nobody can tell me that you can't do that. It's like, what are you talking about? Not only can I do it, I can show you how to do it. Like, you can't take that away from me. Nobody can take away your dancing ability because you worked at it. You demonstrated it in your life. It wasn't just words anymore. Those words, those little seeds became reality. It became ingrained in your cellular structure. Nobody can take that away from you now. The belief
Wow.
becomes a
Yeah.
knowing. And that's what I'm about is take the things that you read because they're out there like Robert Kiyosaki. Another one was Master the Money Game by Tony Robinson. Another one is Millionaire Next Door. And here's the fourth one I'm going to give you. This dude transformed my life. His name is Dan Penye. He took $800 and turned it into billions of dollars in less than 10 years. How did he do that? Well, he gives out a free course online. I think he still does that. His audios, his seminars, his book. He gives it out all out online for free. Look at him up, Dan Pena. I think he still does this. And his goal is to create multi-billionaires. by
Wow.
giving his information for free, by empowering people. And he said something to me in one of his seminars that I got for free from his online that altered my life. And one of the things he said, and this is the last thing I'm gonna leave you with, is find somebody who is doing it. That's when I went and found my mentor that said, I'll show you how to rent out your money. When I heard him say that to me in the audio, I said, I need to find, that's the piece that I'm missing, is I need to find somebody that I can touch, that I can feel, can hear him live in person that can show me how to do that, or even online, somebody that is not just in a book.
Right.
And when I did
Yeah.
that, it took what I was making from Robert Kiyosaki's book and it increased my passive income 300% in less than 8 months. I took the passive income that I was making at the time from reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, and when I got a live mentor in front of my face, it increased it to 300% in less than, it was actually about 6 months. In 6 months, I was able to increase my passive income by 300%. And then it
Wow.
started from there. Yeah. So that's what I'd recommend. And for people to reach me, I've raised my game and I work with a new mentor that's in the field that I'm doing. And you can reach me at admin at k5mortgage.com. That's
Can you?
admin, AIM,
Uh-huh.
ADM at the letter K, the number five, mortgage.com. And you could email me there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just, hey, I want to hear more. What else do you recommend? I'd love to talk to you. The more free people we make, the freer we become as a society financially.
Wow. It's been amazing talking with you,
Thank
King
you.
Al.
Honor. Ah, yeah.
And not Kim, but
Yeah, I
King
got you.
Al.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Thank you, my brother. Thank you,
It's
my
been so
Spanish
awesome.
brother. Yeah,
El español. It's been amazing talking with you,
thank you.
learning from you. Uh,
More to come.